I love it. I love the lifestyle. I totally wholeheartedly believe if I have the race I'm capable of, I can be an Olympic champion. I want to prove that to myself. It's the pursuit of excellence. It's just so thrilling.
What does it mean to navigate the Olympic stream? What can we learn from the journey, the destination, and beyond? I'm Adam Creek, and this is Row Row Tokyo, exploring the past, present, and future of the Canadian rowing athletes on their path to Tokyo 2020. You're in for a good one, folks. We've got Carling Zeeman, otherwise known as Z-Monster, Canada's single sculler on the women's side. She started rowing up in Sudbury, but grew up in southern Ontario, where she played volleyball and did a lot of speed skating. And she credits speed skating actually for teaching her a lot about the suffering that's necessary in the sport of rowing. I think you'll truly enjoy this conversation, and you'll get a sense of how she came from a little girl lined up by her mom to race her siblings down the long driveway of her rural property up to an international competitor. Carling is also a recipient of the Can Fund and the hashtag 150 Women Project supported by Nicola Wealth. The Can Fund is a great program, and I was certainly a recipient when I was a young athlete, and the monies that come in aren't a lot in the grand scheme of things, $5,000-$6,000 for the athlete, but it makes a world of difference in affording training and living and buying the right food and fuel to make the athlete's journey possible. And the 150 Women Project is a great innovation to make sure that women are supporting women on their athletics and professional journeys. So big salutes to the Can Fund. So with no further ado, here we go. Carling Zeeman, Z-Monster. So here we are. I know you have your podcast foods laid out in front of you. Well, why don't you tell us, what are you eating to keep you fueled and aid in your athletic recovery while we have this conversation?
Well, as a hungry rower, I have a bit of food anxiety, so I've got a little bit of everything here. I have my double espresso. Not sure how long this is going to go, so I'm going to be well caffeinated for all of it. I have a stroopwafel to go with it, a bowl of yogurt, banana, and a bubbly on the side.
Oh, bubbly. That sounds like a good meal, actually. So tell me about the food anxiety that rowers experience, because it's, rowing is a fascinating sport because it's super high volume, very high aerobic demands, a lot of anaerobic demands. So it means that you're burning up a lot of carbohydrates. There's a lot of protein demands to make sure that you're rebuilding muscle. Yeah, and I guess I love how you describe it as food anxiety. So I just want to go into that. Like, what do you mean by that?
Oh boy, I got the term actually from my sister-in-law when she was pregnant at one point. And I'm like, oh boy, I can relate to you right now because I was getting really hangry, and she thankfully had something in her purse and kind of tied me over for the next, 5 minutes, as we do. But
so you're basically like a 5-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
if I don't have enough food in me, there's about to be an emotional meltdown.
Yeah. High performance athletes are children when it comes to food. You don't feed us, things go downhill very quickly. The same goes for naps.
How do you manage your diet, and how do you make sure that it's dialed in to fuel you, one, during training, and then two, during racing?
Yeah, totally. One word: Miss Vicky's chips.
Miss.
But in all seriousness, they've really saved me in a pinch. To expand on that, if you talk to our team nutritionist, she'll tell you that her and I have quite a good relationship. Previously in my rowing career, I've really struggled with food in terms of eating enough and recognizing when I have to eat. I typically lose my appetite when I get into really high volume training, and that has really bitten me in the butt on a number of occasions.
Tell me about the experience of when you don't get enough fuel in your system and what that feels like.
It's a tricky thing because I can last, as we've proven, for weeks, if not months, on not quite getting enough or underfueling. But eventually, it always catches up to me. So if I'm underfueling, say, in January and February and March, those are typically the highest volume months for us. I'm not going to feel it in January, February, or March. I'm going to feel it in April and May. And it takes a long time to come back from that. I had a little episode in 2019 where I had been underfueling for a while, and it came to the point where I couldn't do the most basic of physical tasks, let alone be a world-class athlete. So my cue was when, I started really planning out days I would do laundry, because laundry's in the basement. So I'm like, okay, we got to go climb those steps today. Like, let's do this.
So that's interesting. So tell me what your diet looked like when you were underfueling, and then what you needed to adapt to make sure that you're fueling properly.
I really struggled with, and still to this day, struggle with enjoying a lot of food. So my pickiness just goes through the roof. It's a slippery slope. As soon as I start thinking like that, I'm like, ugh, what's the point of even eating it? I just hate it. Dinner carbs were just such a grind. Anyone who knows me will tell you, I really don't like rice. I really don't like pasta. It kind of just leaves potatoes and garlic bread for dinner, as a carb. And so ways that I adapted, I ended up switching part of my diet to include a lot more fatty foods. So just to get the calories in. And so things like 35% cream and butter and lots of avocados and peanut butter, anything that's got a high fat content was on my grocery bill. And that actually, that's helped a lot. I know there's some controversial opinions on, what kind of foods we should be fueling with, but I just personally thrive off of having lots of fat.
Well, and I think that's the interesting part of being, a high performance athlete and having to be in tune with your body, and and recognizing that too, that every body is a little different. You can do these experiments, and I remember when I was training, I ended up going for a what I'd say generally from a macro scale, 40-40-20 split. So 40% carbs, 40% protein, 20% fat. That really worked for me. I still even found at that macro level, it was still difficult to get fat in my diet, specifically because we come out of the 1980s and the 1990s where fat was really labeled as the big enemy.
Yeah. Those typical food, health guide charts. As a high performance athlete, you just got to throw those out the window. No candy? Yeah, right. I would starve to death if I had no candy.
And why is candy and simple sugars important for a high performing athlete who's putting in the amount of work that you're putting in?
while I'm training, it's a sugar boost. It's what we burn. It's what keeps the engine running. Off of the water, it's just another extra way of getting calories for me.
So talk me through your typical day then. It's your typical day for eating in training.
Okay, this is a true test here. See if Sue's listening. She can give me the check or the X here. But so I wake up, and the first thing I do is take my iron supplements, make my coffee, and my first breakfast is every single day it's the same. It's just about a cup of oatmeal with those little, like the little RIT packages, and I really like Dino oatmeal, so it's Dino oatmeal with some extra oats in there, and then whole milk, a couple walnuts, and an apple on the side. A little bit of orange juice. Can't drink too much though, because otherwise I'm just gonna have to pee the entire time I'm on the water. So I gotta really time that one out. Yeah, so that's first breakfast, and then I head out onto the water when I'm healthy, and usually I will just crank out, if it's 20K or 24K or whatever steady state workout is for the day. I'm kind of giving you a screenshot of a winter month. I don't really like to stop. I like getting into my groove and then just going. So I'll take a sip of water before I go, do the miles, and then I'll drink probably a liter of water after my row and chase it with a banana or one of those Nature Valley granola bars. And this also depends if I'm biking to practice and home. If I'm biking, then I'll throw in an extra, I'll do banana and granola bar. After which I head home and make a big breakfast, which is almost always, doesn't matter like what accompanies it, but always eggs and bacon. So sometimes I make French toast. Sometimes I, made bread the night before. So I'll just have some fresh bread, or I really like kale fried in lots of bacon grease. So that's a favorite too. Yeah, do some other stuff. Sometimes I'll take a nap, sometimes some errands, sometimes a second AM session. Whatever it is, I'm doing something, and then I'll have a bit of a smaller lunch. I'm a huge snacker, so nothing formal, just, if I have leftovers, then I'll have leftovers, even though I really don't like leftovers. This is a sacrifice that I make. I eat leftovers.
So it's usually leftovers from the dinner before.
Yeah.
Is the lunch of the day. Yep.
Yeah, or just more breakfast stuff. Like I'm a yogurt fiend, so one of my favorites is a bagel with butter, and then with peanut butter, and then with honey, and then I put an avocado on there.
Peanut butter, honey, and avocado on a bagel.
Yeah, and butter.
And butter. That's amazing.
So that's a good high calorie one.
Yeah.
I will head out for the next session, and that lunch usually ties me over pretty well. When I get back from that session, first thing I do is go to the chip box. So I'm like, just like eating chips as I'm, thinking about what I'm doing next. Chips are just always with me. Like, the girls know before COVID shut down the locker room, like, oh yeah, that's Carly's locker, and she's got her Miss Vicky's ready to go here.
What kind of flavors? You use salt and vinegar?
Salt. I like a good salt and vinegar. Also, just plain. Just nothing like a nice salty plain chip. Usually, I have a fruit or something with that. Sometimes I'll, especially in these summer months, just like go out for an ice cream or a gelato or something, time me over until dinner. And then dinner will look something like my favorite meal. How about that? I'll give you that. Meat and potatoes, obviously. And my dad makes these like, a friend of mine once called them grease balls, but really they're just like big meatballs fried in a lot of butter. Secret family recipe. So I I really like making those with potatoes and then some kind of vegetable on the side. I'm pretty sure it was, a wartime meal where they just like fried up what they had in their garden, and if they had meat, that was, an extra plus. But always with big glass of milk, which is when I take my other supplements, so vitamin D and beta alanine and anything else I might be deficient in at the time. Right now, it's just those two.
Well, so tell me about beta alanine, because I know that it's important in the lactic acid metabolism. But is that something that you take consistently, or do you cycle it?
I have not previously cycled it before, but that's mostly just because I have never really been convinced to take my supplements before. So, but this year I've been like really good about taking it every day, and it's supposed to help.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, non-essential amino acid. Turns into carnosine and helps break down glucose and lowers the fatigue that you should be experiencing. And do you take a multivitamin at all?
Yeah.
And so that's, it's an interesting diet when I hear about it, because it almost sounds like you're, 40-40-20, like 40% carbs, 40% fat, 20% protein from a macro scale.
I put on muscle very quickly. So I'm sure most males would be thrilled with that. But as a female, I just, I just watch. I get a lot of my protein through dairy. And then obviously in my supper time meal, I make sure I have a lot of it. But like protein powder, well, yeah, I'll put 10 kilos on, no problem.
Oh, really?
If I start, yeah.
You get swole.
I get really swole, yeah. Very swole.
Well, and at the end of the day, this is one thing I've noticed too, is that it's, if you're too swollen as an athlete, especially in the sport of rowing, you lose an element of aerobic power because you need more of that lean muscle mass.
Yeah, it's too much weight.
Yeah, too much weight to be carrying down the course.
Yeah, especially in the single, like it's very simple for me. I have to be able to pick myself up every stroke. So I focus a lot on that kind of strength. So just body awareness and able to carry my own weight easily over extended periods of time.
And so does that come into, your off-water training? Will you do a lot of body weight type exercises?
Yeah, totally. Especially in the past few weeks/months, I have gotten really good results from, I do a body weight circuit. It'll kick you in the butt the first time you do it. It's lots of jumping, and obviously I have a bit of an injury right now, so not so much push-ups, but everything is about supporting and moving my own body.
Yeah, supporting moving your own body. Well, I want to dig deeper into this, but before we get carried away, I want to go back to the beginning and back to Cambridge, Ontario. Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, that's hometown.
Growing up on the farm, tell me what it was like growing up on a farm in Cambridge, Ontario.
It was great. I mean, looking back now, like every life experience you have, you realize, oh wow, like I actually had an amazing childhood. Like this is how kids live today. So I grew up with lots of people in the house. I have 4 siblings and had a few more foster siblings around, and that was always a lot of fun for us as kids because you can always have a full soccer team. You can, or not full, but like a competitive soccer team. So it could either be like 3-on-3 or 4-on-4. If we could ever get my mom and dad to play, that'd be like really exciting.
A big game. Well, so like energy, a lot of people. It sounds like a lot of love too, because if your parents are the type that are
Yeah.
taking in foster kids, they've got to have
Yeah.
big hearts. So tell me about your parents.
They're great. That's I mean, what an undersell, but like, how do you even begin with that kind of question? My mom she's a tough woman and very athletic herself. My dad will insist that he contributes somewhat to our athleticism, but I think a lot of it comes from my mom's side.
Well, tell me a story of your mom being athletic and you being amazed.
Every time I go home for, say, Christmas, or we have a little break after World Championships, she'll be like, "Okay, what's the workout today?" Like.
So she does your Olympic workouts with you over Christmas break.
Oh, I just, I'm just too slow. You can go ahead. I'm like, I would hope you're too slow. Like, I'm just being put in my place by a 50-something-year-old lady right now. My mom also happened to be the coach of many of my first sports teams, as well as she would run these like family workouts when we were younger. So,
family workout. What's the?
I can tell you one. Every cross-country season or track and field season, and the people in my training group right now will know exactly this style of workout because this is exactly what we do with Dick and Jeremy. But we have a really long driveway, and it's about 400 meters. So when I say really long, it was around 400 meters, maybe like 390 or something. And she would line up all the kids, slowest to fastest, and send us off one by one, and have us try and finish all at the same time.
That's excellent.
This is like, as a pre-teenager, I was doing these workouts already. And I have two younger sisters, and they were just like totally not into it, like at all. But generally all of my brothers were. And so we got pretty competitive, and it was just always my goal to stay with the slowest brother. If anyone, accuses me of being competitive, I didn't stand a chance. Like, these kinds of things were drilled into me from day one.
Yeah, it's a benefit in your current life as an athlete too, though. Being competitive. And so, how does your competitive spirit come out now?
There was a time. I'll just back it up a little bit, but I really enjoy competing now. But as a teenager, I really didn't like it. I would get so nervous, put a lot of pressure on myself.
Where do you think that pressure came from?
You know what? I have no one to blame. Like, it was just my own expectations, which is crazy. Like, as a 14-year-old, I was thinking, like, if I don't win this, like, I'll just die. Like, just the end of the world, And so I remember lining up for some of these cross-country and track races. I didn't get so nervous for team events. It was more the individual events. But I remember lining up for these races and just, like, shaking in my boots. It was the most nervous I have ever been, including the Olympics. Like, like nothing can compare. I was just, and you get nervous for, generally I was nervous for what I now understand to be like lactic acid, such as this like burning in my legs. And then I remember asking some of my competitors, like, "Oh, like, do you guys just like want to throw up all the time during the race?" And no, like.
Would they say no? No, because you're probably because you're tall and you're larger than average human, so you'd probably be running against these. I don't know.
I was definitely the biggest, but it didn't really enter my mind until much later in life that it is a choice for how hard you push yourself. And I was like, oh no, there's only one gear here and we gotta go so hard.
Go as hard as you can go. And I noticed this even watching my kids. If you're a large human with you've got a large skeleton, lots of muscle mass, and you're racing against someone who's 60% the size of you, they're just naturally going to be faster because that. And so if you're competitive and you're wanting to stay up with them, and you're staying with the leaders with that kind of physiology, then you're going to you're going to generate
it's gonna
more
come
metabolic waste in the process.
Usually pay the price.
I guess you're 14. You're in Cambridge, Ontario. You're doing cross country. What other kinds of sports did you play in your teenage years or participate in?
On a competitive level, I focused on speed skating, and after that, volleyball. That was just my life, In the fall for girls in Ontario, it was cross country, and then you move to volleyball, and then for a short stint, there's badminton, and then at the end of the year, it was either soccer or track and field, and I switched between the two. So 2 years soccer and 2 years track and field.
So how do you think those sports contributed to your athletic development? And do you feel like you lean on the athleticism in those sports now as a rower?
Not so much. I wouldn't say I lean so much on my athleticism. In fact, since becoming a rower, I think I've become less quote unquote athletic, just in general, like my lateral movement, my hand-eye coordination, my ball skills, I get made fun of in my family because I have a relatively athletic family, and so when we happen to get together and play, I'm always applauded for the quote unquote hardest trier. I work the hardest. I'm like, that is such an insult. But as a rower, that's what you want. You want strong people who, and I say strong physically and strong mentally, who just are not afraid to work hard. So I would say that being a speed skater growing up had a huge impact on the way I am able to train now, because that was high performance sport as a child. And so everything that I do now is so familiar, and it's just I'm used to the repetition of speed skating. You're going around in circles, lap after lap after lap, and we'd have 3 practices a week, and then usually meets on weekends, so it's 5 days a week. And you just learn how to be an athlete. You learn how to work hard. You learn how to get up when you literally fall on the rink. You learn how to lose, and you learn how to win. And I think that made the transition to being a world-class rower a lot easier, because there's not a lot in this world right now that is new to me. I've been at it for a while, just a different setting.
Well, tell me, do you have any lessons, any stories in your past where you can say that you learned how to lose, or you've learned how to win?
One of the things in speed skating that happens relatively often is you can catch an edge or hit a puck, or even just, someone else you're skating against can DQ you, and then you fall. So when you fall, you're basically out of the race, and you lose, but you can either choose to finish the race or not, just get off, and then you get a DNF, did not finish. One of the things my dad always told me, I would say this is actually a let me loop him in here. My mom taught us how to train and, how to be winners. And my dad really enforced the lesson of not giving up. He's Dutch, and one of the things he would say to me is opstaan, verder gaan, and it means stand up, keep going. And it has a better ring to it in Dutch, but it was a very literal thing to say in speed skating because it didn't matter. He was like, don't even think about not finishing this race. Like, you get up and you finish. That was a huge lesson to learn as a kid because, you chose to enter this arena and you're going to leave it with your head held high, regardless of the outcome. Not so much a lesson in losing, but a lesson in keeping your chin up when you do lose. That's been something that has really stuck with me through every failure I have now in rowing.
Love that. And so your dad immigrated from the Netherlands to Canada?
My mom as well. My mom was born in Canada and moved to the Netherlands to marry my dad, and my older two brothers were born there, and then she eventually dragged them back here. So yeah, they both immigrated before I was born.
You grew up in Cambridge. You decided to go up to Laurentian. Was that your Laurentian University?
Yep.
That's right?
Yep.
Yeah. Did you discover rowing up there? Was that your first exposure to the sport?
Yeah, it was. I still kind of crazy to me how that all worked out. But when I was deciding what university to choose, it was between an American university to go play volleyball or follow my oldest brother and go to RMC, join the military, or do something totally different. And, the intention when I chose Laurentian was to not do sports. I had done sports my entire life. I just wanted to do something totally different. I wanted different friends. I wanted just a different lifestyle. So when I chose Laurentian, it was obviously for this amazing program that I did. But another perk was that at the time, they weren't well known for any sports that I would potentially be interested in. So I was like, that's perfect. I'm not going to be tempted to join any sports. I'm going to do this outdoor program, which, is just my dream program. And it's in the north. I was like a big fan of going up north because that was just something I did with my dad every year when we went hunting. But so everything about it was perfect. And then I kid you not, within the first week, it wasn't even the first week, it was the second day. There was a learn to row sign, staying in the dormitories, and the girl who lived across the hall from me, ironically, because my last name was Zeeman, there wasn't enough space for me on the girls' side, so I was in the men's hallway, but right across the hall from me was another girls' dorm, and she, it was just the first person I met, so, and she was part of this club rowing team, and so I asked her about it. She's like, yeah, I'm going to go to the meeting tonight. You want to come? I was like, sure, I'm on the men's side here. I don't have any friends. I'm going to go to this thing. And plus, I know that rowers practice really early in the morning. And I had previously worked at a horse farm where I really enjoyed the morning hours. So I was like, okay, 2 for 2. I can stay active, do this fun little hobby, get to see the sunrise most mornings, and meet some friends. So I went to this rowing meeting, which is where I met Amanda Schweinbenz. And
Schweinbenz was your coach.
Yeah, she was the only coach at Laurentian.
I rode with her at UWO. She's got she's a great coach, great personality. Tell me about Schweinbenz as a coach.
As a first year, she didn't take any shit. Like she was a bit of a hard ass for us, and looking back, I can see why. Like most of us, I ended up dragging a lot of my program friends out to rowing, and most of us would just show up to practice like so hungover, useless for her to work with. she had to deal with quite a bit. So eventually, she got us organized. Like this was not a varsity program. This is just, someone who has a passion for sport, and she wants to try and organize it in a city where winter is, at least 7 months of the year. So
because this is in Sudbury, Ontario.
It's in Sudbury, yeah. So we would be like, the lake would be frozen well before CUs or NRCs at that point. So, she's fighting an uphill battle, and the rest of us were too. But she kept it going. Yeah, that first year, we raced head of the Trent, and I was in an 8, and it was a lot of fun. Like it was exactly what I was looking for in sport. It wasn't serious. Like there was nothing for me that was high performance about it. I was competitive, sure. Like when you see the other crews, you're like, oh yeah, let's beat those girls. We didn't take it all that seriously. It was largely social for us, and just a way to get out, and sparked some attention in me and my erg score. Like I think my first erg score was, we all did this 2K erg and did it together. We were obviously really hungover. I was like, oh, what? Like, we're not rowing today? I shouldn't even have come. And so I went 7:31, but one girl had missed it, and she did it like, she was just like late getting to practice. She was probably throwing up on the side of the road or something. And I did another one 10 minutes later, and I went 7:21. And so I think it was like the back-to-back pieces, with a 10-second PB within 10 minutes. That was like, oh shit, like maybe we should start taking this a little more seriously, which I really, to put it lightly, hated. I wasn't ready yet. Like I was really burnt out from sports and didn't want the attention. And like, this was something that was really fun for me. And I just felt like it was going to be taken from me by all of these high expectations, and, the nerves would come back and whatnot. So that first summer, I found a job at a summer camp that was so far out in the woods that there is no way I could possibly be expected to row. So I basically ran away for a summer. And then in my second year, Amanda introduced me to a single. I wish I'd kept a journal during those times, but like looking back now, I'm pretty sure I liked it. I liked just having autonomy, and I know I flipped a lot. Like when I hear people say they've never flipped a single, I'm like, I flipped on average twice a practice. So that's average. Like, so,
what would cause the flipping?
Like it was the try hard attitude. I was like, I don't care about technique. I don't care about anything. I'm just going to pull as hard as I can right now. So obviously that doesn't always go well when you're in a single. You need some degree of finesse. So I would just be swimming constantly. But it didn't bother me. I liked having my fate in my own hands. So that first year of racing, I remember my first race, I was like, Amanda, like, what happens? Like, what do people do when they flip? Like, what happens if I flip? If you flip, you're walking home. And obviously, this was in St. Catharines. It was like the Brock invite or something. And I'm at the start line. I've done, 2 starts in the single in my entire life, but boy, was I good at trying hard. So I was like, oh yeah, this one's in the bag here. Needless to say, I did not win, but I also did not flip. I think that was kind of the moment where I got hooked, because I had a good erg score at this point. I think I was around the 710 mark.
Okay, that's good. Good novice rowing.
Yeah.
And I want to say the world record for heavyweight women is around 620, 621. Is that right?
Yeah, it just keeps getting broken this year. So
okay.
I think it's around 621. It might be 622 or something. I'm not sure. It was recently broken. So
how did your erg score progress over time?
Yeah, and I was sitting around the 7-minute mark for a while, but this is all still at university, and my primary goal at university is not to be the best. It's just to have fun. I want to make sure that my friends are coming with me to practice. Like, I want to make sure that this stays a social gathering for me. So I say that because I want to give some context for my first ergs. Almost all of them were done after a night of drinking. So,
yes.
so all of them.
So you're kind of having, the university,
yeah, very much so.
Lots social, very social.
Yeah.
Not feeling super committed to the sport, but you're enjoying it as something that's peripherally.
Yeah.
It's a periphery of your life that's adding joy to all the other things that you do.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I was sitting around that 7-minute mark for a long time. And the first time I had a big PB was after I spent about a month or so at the London Training Center. I think it was like in the summer, training for under 23s or something. And
so we went down to London, Ontario.
Yep.
Yeah, where University of Western is.
Yeah.
And you were at the
Fanshawe Lake.
Yeah, training on Fanshawe Lake.
Yeah.
Who was there a specific coach there that stood out to you, or was it simply just getting involved with other athletes who were
it was
of a higher caliber?
Yeah, it was mostly just the other athletes. I was a bit of an outcast still. Like, I felt like a lot of the girls knew each other, and obviously I was the only one there from Laurentian. I had only raced the singles, so they had all these fun crew boat experiences, and I was just like, yeah, remember that time I didn't flip?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was the first, after spending a month or so at the London Training Center, I think I dropped my 2K down to 652 or something. And
just after one month of training.
It was something absurd. I can't remember who it was, but someone in a position of authority was just like, "Oh, see what happens when you come down to the London Training Center." And I just couldn't help but think to myself, I'm like, this is just the first 2K that I haven't pulled hungover, and that, I've had a full night rest for, and had a race plan for. So this is just me applying myself here.
Yeah. So what flicked over in your head when, because you kind of went from, a casual participant, someone who's like, I want to row for fun. And I'm the first to say I think that should be totally okay. I think there should be more space like that within the sport. Yet there's some switch got flicked where at some point you must have woken up and had that decision to say, wait a second, I want to see how far I can go with this, and I actually want to commit.
Yeah, I would say that it started when I didn't make my first under 23 team. I just got a huge chip on my shoulder after that, because.
So tell me about that. So there's an under 23 team. What were you trying out for, a crew boat or for the single?
I was told I wouldn't be in the selection for the 8. So I was like, fine, like I'll just row my single. If you're not gonna, let me try out for the 8, then I'll just make my own way here, no problem. And I made it relatively far in those selections, and remember being so devastated when I was told that I didn't go fast enough in my single. But I mean, looking back, I just would have been fed to the sharks if they had sent me. So it's good that I didn't go. But after that, I went to Welland, where there was a national development center for athletes like me, who just weren't quite on under 23 team caliber, but tried hard, quote unquote.
Well, that's your MO, trying hard.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's
so that's kind of where it started for me. The coaches there, Phil Marshall and Siobhan McLaughlin, were great. They made it fun. Like, I really enjoyed myself that summer, and I got really fast. So after a few months of working with them, I started to win. Just like local races, and then we went to the Royal Canadian Henley, and I won that. And it was such
one of the local races, because the OU circuit, I'm going to say, like, the Ontario racing circuit is pretty incredible. So for other rowers who don't, who aren't from around Southern Ontario, don't recognize that you're going to all these little clubs,
yeah,
and all these little lakes and rivers, and
yeah.
Do any of them stand out in your mind as being particularly memorable?
Totally, yeah. So I had just been cut from this under 23 team, and still like I'm just losing all the time. So once you lose a number of times, you just get used to losing. And then I spent a few months with Phil and Siobhan in Welland.
What did they work on with you beyond just more time in the boat?
Trying less hard.
Trying less hard.
Well, just those
and I see this, and I know it's I want you to explain this too. Try less hard, but this is ultimate relaxation in the face of pain, and being able to try hard while staying relaxed is one of the truest paradoxes of sport.
Yeah.
But I also find that's also one of the truest paradoxes in life, and could be one of the reasons why so many rowers, if you look at rowers, they're very successful post-sport in careers. And so you have to try hard, but you also have to be relaxed and in flow while you're trying hard at max power output. And it's a weird sort of paradox.
Yeah.
So what did they do? So tell me about that, and tell me how Phil and Siobhan, two other great coaches, great Canadian coaches, taught you how to do that. Beyond just saying relax.
Yeah. There were a lot of drills. We would have our work sessions in the morning, our drill session after that. A lot of that was sometimes stationary. Other times it was getting in boats with other people. So, picking up on other people's strengths, and them picking up on your strengths, and learning from each other. And then the other one was...
So you would hop in boats with other people?
Yeah.
And you'd learn from them?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Tell me a story about that.
I remember the first time I ever went in a quad, it was with 3 other guys who showed up to practice that day. They were all a little bit older than me, but I had been really struggling getting my rate up. And so how better to fix that problem than to be stuck in the middle of a men's quad? So it was terrifying. It was like, oh my God, I think I might die. Like, rowing's a relatively safe sport, but there's like an element of danger to this. So you sat in the middle of in the men's quad. So you just felt like everything was moving faster. There's more power around you. The water's moving faster, so it's harder to put your
blades in the water, lock in the water.
Yeah.
Maybe the blade might get caught.
Oh yeah.
As we say, catch a crab. Did you catch a crab? Where your blade got stuck in the water? Or?
I mean, odds are I did, but I don't remember it.
Okay.
One of the key takeaways for me was the small movements. So like, it didn't matter how hard I pulled because all three of those boys were stronger than me. So I wasn't going to outdo any of them. So I had to kind of adapt. I was like, what can I bring to this boat that they don't already have? And the top thing was just don't mess it up, Carling. So I really just had to focus on staying in time and working my hands. So like getting them out, tapping out at the finish, getting them in at the catch, and then just doing that over and over and over again. And I realized you can't see me, but I'm actually doing the motion.
Yeah. Just the quickness. Yeah, the quickness around the turn is so incredibly important. Okay, so you went through, you were in the middle of this men's quad. They taught you how to be quick. And where did you go from there after that summer of doing, these small races in Southern Ontario?
Then the school season starts. So then I remember the first race I won, I was shocked. I was like, I'm putting out the exact same amount of effort as I was when I was losing, but all of a sudden I'm winning. It was the same girls I was racing. So I was like, chances are it's me and not all of them that have changed.
That's a good indicator.
Yeah.
So how did that impact you when you had that tell me about that, because that's almost an epiphanal moment where you're thinking.
Then you start thinking, you're like, oh man, like this is kind of fun. This is, I like winning. So after that, it just became a pursuit of getting faster. And obviously, when you get faster, you enter into bigger races. And on the national scale, I won a lot of races.
And this is in the single? In the double? Were you still sculling? Yeah.
All of this is in the single.
So you started to race, and then you ended up winning the Royal Canadian Henley Regatta in St. Catharines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about that, because there's a lot of heats, a lot of semis, lots of... Yeah. It's a long pathway because there's a lot of athletes who come from all over North America.
Yeah. So that was, however small it is compared to, a world championships, that was my first exposure to quote unquote international racing because, there were some Americans who showed up. There were like sometimes people from Chile and Cuba and wherever else. So I was like, oh boy, like this is it. This is a big show here.
And I want to say, to be honest, it is, because one thing I noticed when I would go over and race in Europe, and you'd have like the Dutch and the Germans and the French, and it's not that far between all of these different countries. And it's, the European Regatta is kind of like the Royal Canadian Henley Regatta. Just, instead you have provinces competing against one another instead of, nation states.
Yes. Yeah. Canada's a big country. So it was nerve-wracking. I won the under 23 events there. And that was kind of when I started to become locked in. I was like, we can do this here. Self.
Do you remember those races at all? Do any of those races stand out to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very nervous.
Tell me. So you felt nervous going into them? Yeah.
I remember a lot of lactic acid. I just still was trying way too hard for the speed I was going. But I remember thinking, because I had a relatively good ERG score, I was like, there's no way that I should be losing this race. So the only solution here is for me to push harder, which is what I did. But I realize now that there's definitely other ways.
This is 14-year-old Carling coming out. Now you're, how old you're under 23s this year, 21, 22?
Yeah. 21.
Well, and then how does it, now let's make the step to a senior team, international competition. In my experience, there still is a lot of nerves,
Yeah.
a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And right, and I think it was Greg LeMond, he's an old cyclist. He says, it doesn't ever hurt less, you just go faster.
Yes, that's true.
Right. So I'm, the way you're framing this, I'm curious to see, do you feel like it hurts less now, or do you agree with that statement?
No, I absolutely agree with it. The effort is still there. The burn is still there. You just get used to it. And, on a good day, you're going faster.
You went to the the under-23 World Championships too, in the single scull, following years.
Yeah, 2012 and 2013, where I won a bronze and then a silver.
A huge thank you to our title sponsor, Nicola Wealth, the gold standard of investment advice for affluent families, foundations, and institutions across North America. Nicola Wealth is also the premier partner of the Can Fund 150 Women, where women support female athletes and each other to achieve excellence. Nicola Wealth also has their own podcast, The Wealth Exchange. This show is full of great interviews and inspires you to achieve your aspirations beyond wealth. Providing access to experts, topics explore leadership impact, wealth planning and investing, philanthropy, and building better businesses. Listen to The Wealth Exchange with a quick search for Nicola Wealth on your favorite podcast listening app. Where do you feel the nerves when you have them?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. I can walk you through that first time. It was World Cup 1, I think, in Varese, Italy, and it's my first time racing the women's single. I had raced the women's quad the year before. I just remember thinking, what have I done? Like, this is a mistake, like my mind was doing not very nice things to me, like you just start going in circles, like, I shouldn't be here. This is too much. I would rather just go hide in a very deep hole in the ground right now and never come out.
Yes. So what do you do? Like, you have and I've had this experience too. And what do you think fuels the terror?
It's two things, like my own expectations. I'm such a perfectionist, so it's hard for me to accept anything less than the absolute best. And the second thing, this was my first chance at the single. This is what I was working towards. So I really got the impression that it was a bit of a trial run for me. So if I didn't do well, then maybe my place was actually in a crew boat, which is the feedback that I've gotten pretty consistently throughout the years. Like, there's always that kind of hanging over my head, like, if you're not way out in front, then you might be better off in a crew boat. And I just felt like I had something to prove. So when it comes down to it, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, because there's a lot of pressure from the Canadian program to say, well, if we either want you to be medaling and winning in the single, or we want you to be part of the broader team who's going for the 8 or the 4. And, what's wrong with you that you don't want to commit to our team? Or at least that's probably not said, but that might be implied. Do you feel like there is pressure, like political pressure, that you've had to battle to maintain your
spot?
Your spot as a single sculler?
Certainly in those first few years, and even going into the Rio 2016 Olympics, it was made very clear to me that if I didn't perform at the World Cups and at the Canadian trials, they would be looking at other options for me. And yeah, that's pressure. Like, you got one shot to have the race of your life, and if you miss it, you're not racing.
And I guess that's high performance. There is an element of brutality that exists within the high performance system. And from my experience, there's a majority of athletes actually leave high performance sport feeling less than satisfied with the experience simply because of the regular judgment that's placed upon their performance. How did you deal? Obviously, you worked your way through the pressure because you worked your way through. You rode the cod in 2013, but then you ended up having some good single races. You ended up qualifying and being Canada's boat for Rio 2016 at the Olympics there. So that's no small feat. So how did you deal with that pressure cooker?
When people tell me I can't do something, gets me pretty fired up. I'm like, oh, watch me. So
you like the challenge.
That's the thing.
You need the challenge. So as much as it angers you, it also lights you up.
I have a bit of a stubborn streak, which I think has helped me and hindered me in this sport. But in those cases, it really pushed me through, because when someone tells you can't do something and you're like, who are you to say that? Like, the hours before that moment are not pleasant, because I remember just being seething inside, just with the knowledge that some people didn't think I could do it. As much as I don't like to admit it, proving someone wrong makes me go very fast. So
who are you going to be proving wrong in Tokyo? That's what I want to know.
Yes. So someone's just got to cut me off on the drive or something, or tell me I can't do it, or but there is a line. Like, you tell someone enough times that they can't do it, like, that's going to have a negative effect. So you need a bit of a balance. You need to be able to read the athlete, and luckily I had both the naysayers and the hype squad. And I think everyone needs a bit of both in this sport, because if you're just constantly, told not fast enough, not good enough, then that's just going to wear on someone. But if you have those people in addition to the people who are like, yeah, we believe in you, like, you just got to buckle down and focus here and do what you know you can do, you're going to do it.
Well, who was your biggest believer going into Rio?
100% Volker.
Yeah, legend. He literally wrote the book on rowing. So Rowing Faster, I believe, is his book. So Volker Nolte, kinesiologist, physiologist, great rower, a great inventor. From what I know, I had a lot of exposure to him. I grew up in London, Ontario. When did he become your coach?
They actually brought him on to coach me at my first under-23s, then again for my second year at under-23s. And in the interim, we both kind of went our separate ways. And this is while I was racing in the quad. But when I went into the single, I was asked, you're going to need some more hands-on coaching, like someone specific who can work with you. Do you have any preferences, or would you just like us to make a decision for you? I put Volker's name in the hat because of our relationship. I trusted him, and we had our tiffs and I gave him a hard time sometimes.
Well, what would you argue about? Because it's unique. I'm going to say it's a unique relationship between a single sculler and their coach, because it's very much a one-on-one piece, and especially at a high performance level, because at the Olympic level, you've now had so much experience that you have the knowledge, and you'll have opinions about how you should go.
Yes. Yeah. One of our issues, or one of my issues, I would say, is that, and this is a great issue to have if this is an issue, but Volker was very hands-on. He gave 100% to coaching me. He was like, if we're going to do this thing, we're going to do this thing right. Like, I'm going to give you everything you need. I'll follow you every meter of every kilometer, every practice, every day. For someone who went to Laurentian University and, wasn't used to that much attention, it was hard for me. It was just like a lot of mental focus, physical strain combined into one that I had to manage. And sometimes I just needed space and to be able to feel the boat on my own and figure things out on my own. And the first year we were together, I was also really not good at communicating these things. So I just kind
of sucked it up. Right. And you felt the need to have space. You had that internal voice saying, something's not right here, but you didn't have the communication muscle developed.
Yes. Yeah. So actually Volker, on top of developing me as a rower, had a huge impact on who I am as a person. Like, he was kind of the first person outside of my parents who really encouraged me to be a better communicator, like to be an adult, more or less. So
put on your big girl pants.
Yes.
Yes. You want this? Then tell me it, and tell me why you want it.
Yeah. And he was obviously, like, he's coached a lot of good athletes, and he was really rational about it and mature, and he didn't get angry like I thought he would. So that was probably the main issue.
Well, what a gift, really.
Yeah. What a first world problem.
And more than a first world problem, like, this is leadership development, and adulting is not easy for anyone. And figuring out how to take responsibility for yourself and take responsibility for your actions and your emotional complex, and listening to your intuition, acting upon it, being able to talk about it, advocate for yourself. It's wonderful. So what was the wonderful things? Tell me the best things about Volker and some of the other legacies that he's left in your life as an athlete and as a woman.
I would argue that they're the same as the negatives because he was my number one cheerleader when I was put under the gun, like, by the higher ups being like, oh, we don't know if you can do this. Like, he was always the one that had my back. And there was never any question in my mind where his loyalties were. Like, I knew, win or lose, like, he would be there to grab my oars when I came to the dock, and he would be there to debrief the race with me and tell me what went right, what went wrong, despite the outcome. So, even after my final in Rio, which I was quite disappointed with, he asked for my stroke coach, and he's like, when do you want to go over the data? So I'm like, Booger, your job is done. Like, you don't have to do this. But yeah, he did it, and we talked about it. And
so what did the data teach you? So the Rio race. So it's just, you finished 10th. Is that right?
Yeah.
You're 10th in the world in Rio.
Yeah.
In going through that regatta, were you expecting to be in the B final? Were you shooting for A final? Were you shooting for a podium? What was your goal going into that?
I was shooting for A final. I mean, I knew that podium would be a long shot, but A final certainly. So when I came fourth in that semi, it was hard.
For the data, I need to find more of that relaxation, more of that power rhythm. I need to be applying my power more.
I know it's simple, but I just need to be better. Like, I was a little ways off of qualifying for the A final, but the girls who were winning gold, silver, bronze were quite a bit ahead. So on every level, I just needed to be better. I needed to be fitter. I needed to be technically more aware and be able to adapt to pressure and the conditions. I just really needed to mature as an athlete, I think.
So you're young, and I guess you started. When did you first start rowing? In 2000 and
2009.
2009. So that's 7 years after you began. You're on the world stage at the Olympics, the big show.
Yeah.
And so then Rio happened. It's over.
Yep.
Were your eyes set on Tokyo right away?
Yeah, they were. I tried to, convince other people that maybe I had other plans, but I never had any other plans.
So it was there.
It
was there. And so you're slotting in, and you start to have some success at World Cups. I know 2017, you go to Lucerne, silver medal, and then you finish 6th at the World Championships.
Yeah.
And then who's coaching you after that?
That was actually, that was kind of a momentous World Championships in my career, because going into Sarasota, I had had a few struggles with the head women's coach there. So I just really wasn't in a great headspace. I felt very alone going into those worlds. A big, huge thing for me was, just having someone on the dock when you finish the race, win or lose. And I had been over this with Volker, and it was a really important thing. Just, you want to know that someone's going to be there for you despite the outcome. And there wasn't anyone there for me. I really was quite on my own for that week. I think I had another underperformance at that World Championships.
Just feeling like you were alone and you didn't have...
Yeah, the hype squad, the naysayers outweighed the hype squad. So that really had a huge impact on me. Actually, after that World Championships, I transitioned to the men's team, where I started working with Dick Tonks and Jeremy. Those first few months were pretty tough,
So tell me about that. So you transitioned from your training with the women's squad. Who was the head coach of the women's squad at that time?
That was Dave Thompson.
So Dave Thompson, and then you move over with the men's team. You're with Jeremy Ivy and Dick Tonks. What was the difference in training between those two?
A lot, just for starters. Dick writes the program, so it's we just do what he does. And on my first day, he doesn't talk a lot, but he was like, "Well," he was like, "All right."
I love your Dick Tonks impression.
It was very minimal, but the workout was for the first 2 months. It was the exact same thing every day, and it was 25K in the morning, 25K in the afternoon. You show up, you launch your boat. Sometimes we would go slowest to fastest, especially in our afternoon sessions. I call it the Hunger Games, but it's like back to my childhood cross-country workouts here with my mom. They would send off me first because I was obviously the slowest, and then the next slowest, and then the next, and then if there was ever a crew boat out, they would be going last. And we would just do 2K run after 2K run after 2K run, and just as hard as you can go at 18. That was it. You do the work, you shut up about it, and you show up the next day. So it was really, for me, a sink or swim kind of situation, and I was determined to swim. So I showed up every day. I made sure that I didn't get sick. I was very on top of taking care of my body. I knew that if I wanted to win any form of respect from Dick or any of the guys for that matter, I just needed to be better. So this is common knowledge amongst rowers, but males are just stronger and better and faster than females. I was just fighting an uphill battle every single day, and going from being a bit of a hot shot on the women's team and I can hold my own and win most races, I went from that to losing every single day, just getting pounded into the ground. So that was pretty character building for me. On top of that, it was a period of loneliness. Like I was the only female. Like all the guys are getting changed in the change room, and you can hear like the laughter and talking through the vents, and I'm just kind of just doing my own thing in the girls' room. But I will say, when I'm left alone like that, you don't hear anyone else's negativity, if there is any. So you just hear what's in your own mind, and if left by itself, my own brain stays quite positive. So I was in a good place after being with Dave, and now shifting to Dick, who gave me almost total autonomy of my sessions, and not the program, but just who I chose to be as a rower. I started to really thrive.
That's fascinating. So it gave you space, and you say you want someone to be there on the dock for you. Did you feel, because Dick is very introverted, very quiet in the way that he operates. Is he the one who's there, or is it Jeremy who's there on the dock?
Both of them. They're a package deal. Like they work really well together, and I think the two of them together is what makes them work. Jeremy's a really fantastic communicator, and Dick has the vision, and so we figure out what the vision is through Jeremy. But in terms of who's on the dock for me, I say that with quotation marks, because more or less who's got your back while you're training. Like, who's going to vouch for you when someone in management thinks you're not like quite going as fast as you should be, or something like that. I just have absolute confidence that both of them have and will vouch for me. Like, there's just an enormous amount of trust, and I think it goes both ways. I had to really show them that I was willing and ready to work, and commit to this difficult program, and not cut any corners. And in return, they were willing to go to bat for me when it counted.
And so then you started to have some success under the program?
I won some World Cup medals that year. And at the World Championships in 2018, I mean, such a fluke. You would know this, but I hit a buoy in my semifinal and snapped an oar in the last, 400 meters.
What?
So I just, that was, so that put me in the B final, which was, like, huge bummer, but it didn't.
Like, did the boat flip?
It didn't flip. I was just kind of like precariously balancing, and I was like, this is my nightmare. Like, I'm going to flip out a race. But
well, and if you would have steered properly,
yeah,
you wouldn't have hit the buoy.
this is true.
This is also true. The like, part of your job is to stay in the middle of the lane.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So what was the conversation in your head after that?
I was actually a little worried. Like, when I got off the water, Dick was there, and it was he was like, it was the most compassionate that I've ever seen him. But he like kind of gave me a one-armed hug, and he was like, "They're there." They're there. So, and that, like, it was such a small gesture, but it went a long way. And it kind of just makes you realize, like, this was a fluke. Like, these things happen. Dick still believes in me. The only thing that's at risk right now is my own confidence. So as long as I can hold on to that, then I'll be okay.
You had another event too, where collision with a quad.
That was actually before that World Championships. There were a few extra crews out on the water, and they were just on the wrong side of the buoy line, and we collided naturally. So I got an oar and a bit of their bow in my back. And my own boat has like this huge, it kind of like skimmed the top of my own bow in. So luckily it was a calm day, but if it had been windy, like water would have just splashed in and sank it. And so their coach zips over and Dick comes over and I'm like sniffling, trying not to cry because
It
kind of
hurts.
hurt. And their coach is like, "Oh man, like we're so sorry. Are you okay?" And Dick just kind of nudges their coach boat out of the way, and he's like, "Okay, like just keep moving, just row it out." And I'm like, "Dick, I don't know if there's something broken in here. Like my boat is like it's got this massive hole in it. Are you sure I should keep rowing?" But this is all in my head, so I'm not saying this out loud. I had broken a few bones, or just ribs, so that kind of put me back a few weeks. But obviously, I was able to come back and win some World Cup medals. So yeah,
Was that your first experience with rib injuries at that time?
yes, yeah.
Your first broken ribs?
I'm just getting over another stress fracture right now, and it's a tough grind because obviously we're counting down the days to Tokyo, and this is not where you want to be. You don't want to break a rib, but having broken that rib in 2018 has actually given me a lot of guidance for this second time around.
Is it the same rib that's broken, or is it a different one?
No, other side.
The other side.
Yeah.
So people that understand who are listening, often ribs aren't broken in a collision. Traditionally in rowing, most ribs are actually broken through stress fractures. You're hanging on the oars and your skeleton's taking the load, and that's often the weakest point. Kind of like runners get stress fractures in their shins. What are you doing to recover from the broken rib?
Well, that's an interesting way of phrasing it because that becomes your new job. Your new job is recovering. It goes from training to recovering, 100% effort. So, and that's a tough thing. Like, if someone tells you to relax harder, it's a bit of an oxymoron.
Yeah.
So, I've really had to dial it back and then start building it up. So, and it's a really hard thing to do, knowing that every practice that you dial it back, you're just going to pay for it an upcoming week. I'm building back up again, and I've slowly been integrating back into group sessions and the boat. It's pretty nerve-wracking because I've lost a lot of confidence in my body and specifically my rib cage, and just my own ability to be able to feel pain when it matters. I really need to focus every stroke, every practice. Like, is this the right kind of pain? Is this a broken rib pain, or is this a muscular pain, or is this just something that my mind is making up right now? And that's been that's been a grind for me because I'm really good at just turning my brain off and shutting out all pain. To have to turn it on again is not fun. It's way easier to just ignore everything.
Well, it is. It's an interesting way of putting it, because it is, there's an element of cognitive development, higher awareness that you need to go through this. And it's an element of maturity, and I've told you this before. I had back injuries, chronic back injuries going through my Olympic journey. I had herniated discs, leading into Athens. That I had two, and leading into Beijing. And you get to a point where when you're younger, you have to learn how to push your body to its maximum, and then as we mature as athletes, the body starts pushing back, and that's therein lies the balance. If you're not, and I've seen this, right? If you're not on the threshold of injury, you're probably not training hard enough. And so and you have to ride that line, because if the body's breaking down, then maybe the training load isn't high enough, because this is a challenge of strength and endurance. And this piece is a bit of a mind scramble.
Yeah.
And resources that you reach out to in these times of trouble.
The resources are definitely there. There are certain people that I can always reach out to if I needed to, saying that this is entirely a good thing. I mean, I've become totally self-reliant. Anything that I need in terms of encouragement or belief or motivation comes from within myself.
Think of my own experience when I was in the depth of injury and the Olympics were approaching, and I was seeing my hopes evaporate. And I know there were times when I would even just have, I had pain medication, and I would just take pain meds, and I just took them for a couple of days, and I just knocked myself out. And it's it's not even that my back hurts, it's just that my heart hurts and my soul hurts, and I just want the time to pass quicker, and I just don't even want to feel anything.
I definitely have to stay away from pain meds, because that's what kind of started this whole problem in the first place, is me not feeling pain in time. So I want to make sure that I feel absolutely everything, so I know what's going on. But that's not to say that I don't have my own coping strategies. And a big one is just finding peace in the things that I can do. So I have started running a lot during these past 8 weeks, and I always take my dog out, and so it's just I'm almost in this meditative state. So I think it really helps my stress levels. The doctor was a little concerned. He's like, "Oh, I don't know if you should be running this much if you have a broken rib." And I was like, "Trust me, this is going to do more good than damage."
Yeah, so you're on that path. So looking forward to Tokyo. Here you are in Tokyo. It's a funky, weird Olympics, because not going to be a lot of crowds. It'll be very quiet. Tell me about that regatta and what you anticipate.
Just learning to be intrinsically motivated. I think actually the no crowds and, a quieter venue is going to play to my advantage. If you're an athlete, you're going to try and, or at least I would, try and block a lot of that out, because that would be total overstimulation for me. So if it's not there to begin with, then that's just going to make my job a little bit easier. Yeah.
So do you eye the other rowers, or are you very much, in your own boat, in your own race?
I'm very much in my own boat. And I remember this used to frustrate Volker a lot, because he'd give me stats on all the other rowers, and I'm like, I don't really care, Volker. It doesn't matter to me. Don't bother. And Dick is actually much more similar to how I think. If you want to win, you're going to have to beat them all anyways. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you're racing, because you got to beat them all.
Yeah. I love it. So simple. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who's out there. I just need to be the fastest in the world. Yeah. Yeah. It's so simple.
I'll get right on that.
Yeah. And then are you anticipating, because I remember having conversations with Derek Porter, Canada's old single sculler, and him just recounting how horrible it was racing. And how much he absolutely hated it. It was just I was like, yeah. Right. And, here we have like one of the best single scullers Canada
Yeah.
ever produced. And just like, I hate it. Like, I hate how nervous I get, how sick I feel. I hate the self-loathing, the despondency, the fear, the loneliness, the questioning, why do I do this? Why do I put myself through this? This is like, I volunteered to do this. I signed up to do this. And it's and it's uncomfortable in crew boats, but it is amplified in the single because there's misery loves company, and there's you have your coach or other people, but you're alone, and so like, have you anticipated? Have you anticipated that? Because it's been a while since you've actually gone to that level where it is on the line. The world is watching. It is the big show. It's the Olympics. It's not a world championships or a world cup.
I don't think there's any preparing for that. Like, Derek is absolutely right. There's nothing pleasant about it. This is something that we've been gearing towards now for 5 years instead of 4, and there's so much on the line. So one of my best coping strategies is to just trick myself. Like, this is just another 2K time trial here, and all I need to do is like what I've done in practice. So just block it all out, do it. But that said, like, it's hard to ignore, the Olympic rings every 500 meters or something. So it's a beast. It's like we said earlier, like, it doesn't get any easier. You just get used to it.
Why? What's the point of that, like the pain, and what's the point of ripping down to that vulnerability, the self-doubt, the existential crises that occur in those high-pressure moments?
I love it.
What's the point?
I love the lifestyle. I totally, wholeheartedly believe if I have the race I'm capable of, I can be an Olympic champion. I want to prove that to myself. It's the pursuit of excellence. It's just so thrilling and addicting. I personally just thrive when we're like middle of the race and people are neck and neck, and it's just like, oh, who's gonna grit their teeth and give her here. Like, that is just, that's what really sets my soul on fire.
What will it take for you to be on the podium?
Well, first of all, I need to get absolutely and 100% healthy. After that, I need to make sure I'm in the right spot. Like, I need to make sure that I'm confident and I can trust my body.
What will it take for you to trust your body?
Experience. So doing it. Doesn't matter what people say. Like, words are cheap. I have to be out there doing it.
So beyond Tokyo, have you thought about it?
A little bit. I'm currently signed up for my first ultra marathon, or it's an ultra race. And that's kind of cheap for me to say because it's actually only a 28K, but it's got a lot of elevation. So I think that'll be a nice detraining challenge. In terms of making a living and earning some money, I haven't narrowed it down quite yet, but I'm also signed up to take an emergency medical responder course. So something high stress, high adrenaline, you got to be on the ball for. That's where you'll find.
Yeah. Do you think you'll have more rowing in you after Tokyo, or?
I'm a lifer. I mean, I love the sport. I don't see how I could have done this for so long if I didn't love it. So I'll definitely be in and around a boathouse in the future for sure.
Well, I've appreciated our time together and appreciated learning a little bit more about you and your journey. All the best on the healing journey, and finding peace in the process, because it's not easy, and the challenge ahead is certainly one that you're ripe for. So all the best as Tokyo comes.
Yes, thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Carling. What an incredible conversation. I appreciate that. Two things stand out as I reflect upon the conversation. One, we must find peace in the things that we can do when the world is not moving in our favor. Thank you, Carling, for that insight. I'm going to take that away. And two, we must work hard to keep our confidence up. And when we work hard to keep our confidence up, the results will follow. So Carling Zeeman, Z-Monster, Canadians single sculler. Wonderful. So thank you very much. Until next time, everybody. If you're enjoying this podcast and are wired for growth, check out my audiobook or paperback called The Responsibility Ethic. I wrote this book for listeners keen to carve their own path to achievement. You'll find 20 years of my life experience summarized into 7 hours of listening, or 3.5 hours if you're like me and listen to all your audiobooks at 2 times speed. You'll find business case studies and personal development insights packed in a narrative of Olympic failure, Olympic victory, and yes, there's my team's rowboat capsize in the Bermuda Triangle. Find the audiobook or paperback where all good books are sold, including Amazon, Indigo, and Audible. For more information, visit my website, creekspeak.com. That's KREEKSPEAK.com. Thank you for listening to Row Tokyo. Again, I'm your host, Adam Creek. Feel free to reach out to me with comments on Twitter at Adam Creek. That's @ADAMKREEK. No, it's not like the river or the squeaky door. It's a creek with a K. A huge thank you to our title sponsor of this podcast, Nicola Wealth, the gold standard of investment advice for affluent families, foundations, and institutions across North America. And another thank you to Whitehall Rowing and Sail and the Oar Board, which is the transportable, collapsible rower that you can take anywhere. Thank you, Rowing Canada, for your support to wrangle these athletes. And thank you, CBC, for promoting these conversations on your massive platform. This show is produced by the wonderful Mary Chan of Organized Sound Productions. The sound is edited and mixed by the creative Danelle Cloutier.